Today, we're going to look at a reread for me. Maybe once, maybe twice. We're going to look at So Good They Can't Ignore You by Mr. Cal Newport. I had this on Kindle first. I read it a few years back, maybe 2-3 years ago. And now we're rereading it. Buckle up. So unlike last time I looked at this book, and I will link it somewhere, I'm not going to do a review of it. I'm going to talk about the things that I think Newport got wrong. Things that I just don't agree with when I read the book this time, because over the years I've read, 170 more books, 200 more books. I have more thoughts that align or don't align with Cal Newport. And that's what I want to talk about. First thing I want to talk about that Newport doesn't really address, or he addresses it, but he only talks about one type of learning environment. And so we learned about learning environments and range. There'll be a link to that. And there's kind and wicked. And I reviewed that, and I'll actually just read what I said when I read it, or when I did my review earlier. I did that in September of 2019. And I summarized his two learning environments like this. Kind environments are those that have well-defined rules, and the choices you make immediately result in feedback about the quality of those choices. Chess is a good example of a kind environment. The rules are known, and you get feedback immediately about the quality of your move. In contrast, wicked environments have ill-defined rules, and the feedback may come long after choices have been made. Wicked learning environments don't have repeating patterns, and sometimes even success isn't quite clear. So, one of the big things that Newport talks about this is building career capital. So getting really good at your job so that you have capital, like you bring value when your employer wants you there. And then you, instead of trading that for a raise, you trade that for more freedom, right? You become so good they can't ignore you, just to use the title of the book. That they have to do kind of what you want. Not catering to you isn't right, but that you can trade your expertise for more of what you want instead of just what the employer wants to give you. And the pathway he really gives you there is really only one that works in kind environments. Even though some of the people that he talks about work in wicked environments, I just feel like he misses the difference between the two. And maybe he just didn't think about it, right? So Good They Can't Ignore You came out long before Range, so maybe the ideas just weren't on his radar at all. Totally fine, but that's one of the places that I really feel he misses the mark with it. There's no good direction for those living in wicked environments, right? So being a writer, like it's a wicked environment. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'll write this thing, and it would have gone really well 5 years before, but it's terrible now. Nobody wants to read your stuff. Or someone else, just tweaks it slightly better, or knew someone that helped share it, and so they get it better. Even though you technically wrote a better article, or they used your content, they used your ideas, they get more recognition for it than you did. So that's like, and it doesn't really provide a good way to do that, to succeed in that environment. He really addresses well kind environments only. Right? He talks about the 10,000 hour rule, and he does state that it's not just 10,000 hours of X type of work, it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, right? He does say have a coach. He does say, like, I have a writing coach right now. I think I have my first meeting later today. And I know I have my first meeting later today, right? And writing being a wicked environment, knowing that she's going to read it, she's going to give me some feedback, she's going to trim and cut a bunch of stuff, right? She's been published in a bunch of, good high profile magazines. So she's clearly got, the writing chops to help me improve my writing, to help me get to a better spot so that I can be more succinct and better. And yet, there's still not a clear path provided by Newport for those working in wicked environments. And this is kind of as close as he gets, and we'll read his quote. It says, let's assume you're a knowledge worker, which is a field without a clear training philosophy, wicked environment. If you can figure out how to integrate deliberate practice into your life, you have the possibility of blowing past your peers in your value, as you'll likely be alone in your dedication to systematically getting better. So that's what he says. He says, get a coach. And that's despite all the people that he really cites in his book, Follow the Path of Range, where they did like a whole bunch of different things. They tried this, tried that, tried this, tried that. And then through this confluence of events, because they had this experience in 6 different areas, now they have this amazing career that you want. He just doesn't recognize that very well. And yeah, he just doesn't. That's it. So that's one of the things he misses. And then he also talks about meritocracy. He literally uses the word, hey, just you do better based on how good you do. That's what the book is premised on. Like, if you do good work, people will notice it. And that's just not true. And he's a white dude in America. I'm a white dude in Canada, roughly equivalent. We have a lot of privilege to be able to say, oh, meritocracy, of course, right? I have the privilege of having a wife upstairs that's, well, she's not watching the kids because it's like, before 6 a.m. Before 6? No, it's actually 6:14. Sorry, I lied. But I had a privilege of, like, my parents paid for most of my school, paid for a lot of my school. Once I was married and they didn't pay for it, I was able to get a good job and pay for it. And then my in-laws decided to just pay for it. My wife's parents decided to just drop in like a couple grand every year for my schooling. And then we had a small loan and they asked for the number and they just started paying it off anyways for us. Yeah, they just started paying it off for us. And so when I came out of school with under $10,000 in debt, and partially because I worked hard, like I worked full time and went to school at the same time. And then they helped pay it off. So like I have a lot of privilege for me to be able to say yes. And then as I came out of school with only $8,000 in debt, I had a wife that was willing to work, do all the house chores so that I could get my freelance business off the ground. And we basically had no debt when I got my freelance business off the ground. And that is in part because of the privilege we had, because my parents could help pay for it, because my in-laws could help pay for things. And in part because I worked hard, because my wife and I both worked a lot of extra hours in those first few years to help get it all off the ground, to help pay off all our debt, and then have chose continually to not have debt, right? So 10 years later, still no debt. We have continued to choose to do that. But not everyone has those choices. I even think right now, in lockdown, because what's the date? I'll tell you the date so that you can reference this just in case it's later. It is April 23rd, 2020. So in lockdown, lots of people are saying, oh, so-and-so famous person invented this amazing thing during lockdown. You could do it too. Sure. But what about those people that don't have a spouse around to watch the kids? Like, even the days when the kids are playing, because my office kind of garage is this way and house is this way, they like come through to go outside a lot to get in and out of the garage. Like those days, like I don't get much done because the kids are in and out like 27 times. So for a single parent, like, oh yeah, you can totally do this on your own. No, they're just like, in some cases, just barely hanging on. Right? They're barely getting the regular stuff done, let alone this new other thing that they want to invent. Like, I had time to start my freelance business before I had children because I didn't have children that needed my time. Yeah, that's just it, because I didn't have children that needed my time yet. If I was trying to work evenings and weekends to do that now, like that would be really hard because I got kids that need my time and my wife needs me to not be working so I can hang out with her and hang out with the kids. So meritocracy just doesn't work, and like it's been shown over and over, right? So in the written version, in the description below, there's going to be a ton of links of this. It even says, from The Atlantic, Americans are more likely to believe that people are rewarded for their intelligence and skills, and are less likely to believe that the family wealth plays a key role in getting ahead. But that's not the truth, right? Women and minorities have a hard time. They have to show like 2 or 3 times as much initiative and productivity as a white dude to get the same thing, basically. And I got to ask for it, and I got to keep going for it. And when women ask for things like that, they're thought of as like pushy and needy and all this extra stuff that a white guy's like, oh, he's just being assertive. So meritocracy just doesn't work. And that's one of the things that Newport hinges on. Not hinges on, it's just like a big thing that he says, like, just because you do good work, people will notice you. And that's not quite true. Now, despite these 2 issues I see with the book, not addressing wicked learning environments really well at all, and hinging so much on meritocracy, which is a privilege. It's a privilege. Not everyone can use this. I just saw another one it's at more10 on Twitter. He just recently, Morton, he works at Linda Training. A very smart man, and he was just said another article by recently saying like basically meritocracy doesn't work, which is interesting for open source software, which is kind of my field, right? That's what I build web stuff basically on open source software, and I release stuff open source. But I can do that because of my privilege going back, because I could start a freelance business, because I could find a niche, because I could charge really well now so that I only have to work about half of my hours in the day I have to work. I don't have to work the rest of the time. Not for anyone else. This is me working, but not working for anyone else, right? Making no direct income right now. So he doesn't address those things, but despite that, I do think there's a lot of value in the book, that becoming really good in a field does buy you power to dictate your terms, right? It buys me power to say, no, I don't do meetings at this time. No, I don't take those type of projects, right? Or here's what I charge, and people say, well, that, I can't. That's a little out of my price range. Well, okay, well, have a good day. Some of that's because because I've spent 10 years building membership sites. There's no doubt. Like, I have earned some of that. I've had an easier time earning it because of privilege. Yeah. And it's a hard one to reckon, right? It's a hard one to. I can't recognize my privilege in many ways because I'm a white dude, because it's just what I've been growing up in. And I need to, and I'm working on it. That's what I can say. I'm working on it. So I recommend that the book is good. I think that it's got a lot of solid ideas around how to build a career that's worth having, build a career that lets you have freedom of your time. But that a lot of some people are going to look at it and say, oh, I could never do that. Like, it's just not even like, this idea is not even in something I can do. It's not even with the realm of possibility with the life I have to lead. And I think some of them are not, or would not be if I was starting from scratch in a job somewhere else right now, would not be within the realm of privilege that I would have right now with kids, as my kids need my time. So yeah, take it with that grain of salt. That's it. If you liked today's video, you can give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, you can subscribe below and then hit the bell, because that's the way YouTube will let you know that I have new videos. But make sure you have notifications off on your devices, because you don't actually want those. You want to focus on your work. If you really loved it, you can go to patreon.com/CurtisMcHale. And for as little as $5 a month, you get some extra content, see some of the books I'm talking about before everyone else, some of the things that are coming in before everyone else. Get to see my kids more often, because I interrupt that video way more often, because that's when I record it. And just see even some of the new gear that comes through this office earlier than other people. Have a wonderful day.